He was crying, a young puppy clutching a filthy white plastic bag like it was the last piece of his life. He held it so tight his paws were shaking, as if letting go meant losing everything. The midday heat in Scottsdale, Arizona, made the asphalt shine like glass. Cars slid past his tiny shape on the shoulder without even slowing down. He was maybe 4 months old, a German Shepherd puppy, all ribs and unsure ears, wrapped around that white bag and whining through his teeth. He pressed his chest into it as if the plastic itself could keep him alive. A few drivers finally eased up. Phones came out, windows stayed closed. Someone laughed, filmed, and then disappeared back into traffic. To them, he was background noise, not a terrified rescued puppy clinging to trash like it was the only solid thing left in his world. My name is Caleb, and I was filling water bowls at the rescue when dispatch called about a small aggressive pup on the east shoulder with a bag in his mouth. 10 minutes later, I was on that same shoulder, sun on my neck, standing a few yards away from him. I crouched down, hands low, voice rough but soft, trying to sound calmer than I felt. He exploded forward, paws skidding on baked gravel, claws scraping, the white bag crumpling between his teeth as he almost went down. I jerked back, not because I was afraid of him, but because the next car missed him by a couple of feet. If he bolted now, they wouldn't even see him before it was over. In that moment, the noise and the heat dropped away. There was only that filthy white plastic bag, stained and sour-smelling, crushed flat under his jaws, and one thought hit harder than the sun on my back. What could possibly be inside that bag that he was ready to die rather than let it go? One wrong move, and that little life was gone. I shifted to the side, slow and wide, like I'd done 100 times before, and lowered myself onto one knee in the dust. I kept my eyes off his, stared at the gravel instead, and let my voice do the work. "Hey, buddy," I said, like I was talking to a scared kid in the dark. "Easy. I'm not here to take anything from you." His back legs were shaking so hard I could see the tremor from where I was. He backed away in tiny, jerky steps, claws scraping the roadside, but his jaw never loosened on that filthy white plastic bag. He held it like there was a smaller, weaker stray puppy hidden inside that needed him to be brave. Traffic rolled past a few feet away, engines humming, bass rattling windows. A couple of cars had stopped behind mine now. Phones were pointed at us like we were a show instead of a scared dog and a tired man just trying to get him off the shoulder alive. Someone laughed at something I couldn't hear. Another voice said, "Just grab him, dude," from the safety of an air-conditioned car. I felt the anger rise, hot and fast, but I swallowed it down. It wasn't about them. It was about this rescued puppy who still thought trash was the only thing in the world that wouldn't leave him. He started to drag the bag again, tiny paws slipping in the gravel, trying to haul it farther down the road. When a gust of wind pushed the smell toward me, it hit hard. Sour milk, cheap detergent, a trace of perfume. That bag smelled like somewhere he used to belong, and I didn't need to look inside to know it. He stepped closer to the white line now, ears pinned, eyes wild. An SUV tore past, and the wind from it rocked his whole body. Another half step, and he wouldn't get a second chance. "Okay," I breathed, more to myself than to him. "We're done gambling." I slid my hand back to the truck, fingers closing around the light catch pole we keep for dogs that can't handle a normal leash. My palms were already sweating, but it wasn't fear of him. It was the weight of knowing that if I messed this up, there wouldn't be a do-over. I eased the loop out, keeping it low, my heart thudding in my ears louder than the traffic. I talked the whole time, soft and steady, letting him hear the rhythm of my voice. At the exact moment he glanced toward the road, I flicked my wrist and dropped the loop over his neck. He let out a scream that didn't sound like it should belong to something that small. His whole body hit the end of the line, paws scrambling, the bag crushing under his teeth, but he still refused to let it go. And then it was just me, kneeling on the edge of the highway, hands locked around the pole, a shaking German Shepherd puppy at the other end of it, and that filthy white plastic bag still clenched tight in his jaws. I remember thinking, with my knees burning on the hot asphalt, that if I ever had to take that bag away from him, it might cost me the only trust we'd ever get. By the time we rolled up to the shelter, he still hadn't let go of that bag. We carried him straight from the truck into intake, the air changing from hot asphalt and exhaust to cold bleach and stainless steel. The dog rescue building outside Phoenix always feels a little too bright at night, like the lights are trying too hard to make up for everything that walks through the door. They put him in a small metal run, just big enough for a bed and bowls. He didn't use either. He shot straight into the back corner, curling his body around that filthy white plastic bag like a stray puppy trying to make himself disappear. Anytime a hand got too close, he turned wild. Not big dog aggressive, not yet, but panicked. High, tearing barks that broke into a scream, teeth flashing over the handle of the bag, eyes so wide you could see the whites even through the grime. The vet techs moved carefully, soft voices, no sudden movements. Still, when they leaned in to check his gums and eyes, his heart was thundering so hard you could see it in his chest. Dehydration, old bruises along his ribs, fresh scrapes from the roadside. The monitor above the table blinked that fast, frantic rhythm that tells you a German Shepherd puppy isn't just scared. He's hanging on by adrenaline and nothing else. I watched from behind the glass, palms flat, wishing I could explain that we weren't here to take more from him. But to him, we were just more hands, more smells, more strangers trying to get between him and that one piece of his past he hadn't lost. We set a bowl of food down, fresh water next to it. He didn't move, just stared, frozen, every muscle ready to bolt even though there was nowhere to go. "Try the bag," I said. They slid it a little farther into the run, setting it in the far corner. That did it. He crawled forward inch by inch, belly almost on the floor, never taking his eyes off that white shape. When he reached it, he pressed his nose into the plastic, breathed in once, then finally let his head lift toward the food. He ate with tiny, careful bites, twisting his body so the bag stayed in his line of sight the whole time, like another rescued puppy he had to guard. One of the newer staff wrinkled her nose. "That thing stinks," she said. "We should toss it. He'll calm down faster without it." I heard my own voice come out lower than usual. "You rip away the only thing he thinks is keeping him alive tonight. You won't calm him down. You'll break him." There was a pause, a shrug. They backed off. The bag stayed. Later, when the hallway finally went quiet, I stood there alone, looking in. He was stretched out in that metal box, too tired to do anything but breathe, one paw thrown over the white plastic like it was warm. He inched forward, nose first, and laid his whole face on it, eyes half closed, as if whatever was sealed inside could still protect him. And I remember thinking, with my forehead against the glass, how do you help a dog whose entire world has shrunk down to a dirty plastic bag no one is brave enough to open? The next day, I came back and sat on the floor outside his run, my back against the cold wall, legs stretched out like I was just tired and had nowhere else to be. I didn't try baby talk or tricks. I just started talking the way you do when the person you really want to hear you isn't there anymore. I told him about the old dog I used to have, the one who rode shotgun in my truck for 12 years. How quiet the cab felt the first time I drove without him. How I caught myself reaching over to scratch a neck that wasn't there. The rescued puppy growled at me at first, short, sharp warnings from behind that filthy white bag. If I shifted my weight too fast, he'd bark, then let out that high, broken sound that wasn't quite a bark at all. He'd shove his nose deeper into the plastic like it was a shield. So I stopped moving. I let the metal dig into my back and just kept talking in that low, used-up voice you get after too many nights like this. I talked about coming home to an empty house, about opening the door and hearing nothing, about how you can live in a place for years and still feel like a guest once the dog is gone. Somewhere in the middle of that, his growling started to fade. Not all at once. Little pieces of silence slipped in between the sounds, like he was running out of energy to stay angry at me. He lay down finally, still wrapped around the bag, still shaky but not hiding his face anymore. Every time I said the word alone, his paws twitched like it landed somewhere familiar. When the tech slid a bowl of food inside, I kept my eyes on the opposite wall. I didn't lean in. I didn't call him. I just breathed and waited. After a long minute, I heard the soft scrape of metal. He was crawling forward, inch by inch, making sure that plastic stayed in his sight as he reached the bowl. For the first time, that little stray puppy ate while I was sitting right there. Then a door slammed down the hall and a metal tray hit the floor. He jolted like he'd been shocked. bolted back, and crushed himself against the bag so hard the plastic crackled. The lights dimmed for the night shift. Most people went home, but I stayed. I watched him finally sag from exhaustion, nose buried in the white folds, one paw draped over it like a promise. And then he did something small that hit me harder than any bark. He adjusted just enough so that while his paw stayed on the bag, his eyes could still find me through the bars. I sat there wondering how I was supposed to build a bridge from that plastic to my hand without shattering the only world he trusted. Morning hit like a punch. The first thing I noticed was the silence. No bark, no scratch of claws on metal, just the soft wheeze of machines and the kind of quiet that makes your stomach drop before your brain catches up. He was still in the run, curled around that filthy white bag, but the fight was gone out of him. When the vet tech opened the door, he didn't even lift his head. His eyes followed her, slow and glassy, like it cost him more than he had just to track movement. They had to help him stand, and his back legs buckled halfway. Diarrhea, dry gums, heat radiating off his small body. The vet pressed the thermometer in, glanced at the number, and her mouth thinned in that way that never means anything good. Infection, maybe, she said, or his system's just crashing from the stress. Then everything sped up. Needles, tubing, clipped fur, someone calling for more fluids, another voice reading out a heart rate that sounded like it belonged to a hummingbird, not a German shepherd puppy who should have been chewing shoes somewhere. I stood in the corner of the treatment room, that old ice settling in my chest. The same feeling I'd had the night I watched another dog slip away while I stood there with empty hands. The same useless loop started in my head. I was late. I should have gotten to the road sooner. I should have done more. When they shifted him to the table, he tried to fight. A weak growl, a snap that didn't even clear the air, paws clawing at nothing. Every second the movements got smaller. "Let me hold it," I said. They hesitated, then handed me the white plastic bag. I moved it close to his face, just under his nose, careful not to brush the IV lines. The second he smelled it, his breathing hitched and he inched his paw toward it, claws clicking on stainless steel. After that, he stopped fighting. Not because he was calm, because there was nothing left in the tank. His chest rose and fell in heavy, dragging pulls. His eyes fluttered, then sank shut, his paw coming to rest just shy of the bag. I wrapped my fingers around that tiny paw and the crumpled edge of plastic at the same time, like I could hold them both together by force. And all I could think, standing there under the cold lights, was one question I didn't dare ask out loud. Was he going to survive this night? Or was that closed, dirty bag going to be the last thing that ever made him feel safe? The night dragged on in little pieces of sound, the soft beeping of monitors, the shuffle of shoes, the low, tired voices of vets who'd seen too many close calls and not enough miracles. Every time I thought about going home, I looked back at the treatment room and stayed put. I watched numbers rise and fall on a screen that didn't care how badly I wanted one scared German shepherd puppy to make it. When morning finally bled through the high windows, he was still here. Alive. Not okay, not yet, but breathing on his own. His eyes were cloudy when he blinked up at us, but they weren't empty. He was looking at the world, not through it. There's a difference, and once you've seen both, you never forget it. They moved him back to his run. Careful with the lines, careful with his weight. Somewhere in the shuffle, the white plastic bag ended up in the corner again like it had been waiting for him to come back. For the first time since we'd brought him in, they let me step inside with him. I eased down onto the concrete, laying flat on my side a few feet away, trying to make myself smaller than I am. No reaching, no big movements, just a tired man and a hurt, rescued puppy in the same metal box. I'd brought an old blanket from home, one I'd slept with on the couch for a couple of nights until it smelled like me and not the store. I slid it in slowly and set it next to the bag, not replacing it, just sharing space with it. He stretched his neck toward the plastic first, breathing it in like oxygen. Then his nose bumped the edge of the blanket by accident. He froze, sniffed once, twice, no growl, no bark. Just that tiny frown puppies get when they're trying to decide if something new is dangerous or not. For the first time, there was something in his world besides that bag that didn't hurt him. In my head, the word came before I could stop it. Marlow. It wasn't a decision so much as a feeling. If he made it, he wasn't going to be that pup with the plastic forever. He was going to be someone. We set a shallow dish of food down between us. He didn't lunge for it this time. He watched me first, making sure I stayed put, then inched forward on shaky legs. He took a bite, another, all while keeping one eye on me and one eye on his bag, as if he was trying to guard both at once. There was a little spark in him again, a brave pup under all that fear, testing out the idea of staying instead of running. I let the quiet stretch between us, then let the name slip out, barely louder than a breath. "Come on, Marlow." His jaw tightened on the plastic for a second. He paused, eyes flicking up toward me, like something in that word landed somewhere he didn't know he still had. Recovery didn't come all at once. It came in small, stubborn pieces, a few more bites of food each day, a little more weight over his hips, less bone, more dog. His eyes cleared first. That dull, faraway glaze faded, and suddenly there was a sharp, questioning look watching me when I walked past. The ribs stopped jutting so hard. His coat, once dull and dusty, started to shine in spots where the light caught it, the way a young German Shepherd puppy is supposed to look, not like something dragged off a shoulder. When the vet finally said, "He's stable enough for the outside run," I think I let out a breath I'd been holding for a week. We moved him to a bigger enclosure with a little patch of dirt and tired grass out back. He stepped into it carefully, like the ground might give way, that crumpled white plastic bag clenched in his teeth as if it had a reserved seat in his new life. I brought soft toys, a rope, a ball that squeaked. The first time I rolled the ball, he flinched like it was coming to hit him. The rope made him shrink back. Every moving thing was another threat a rescued puppy had to survive. So I slowed everything down. I sat in the run, tossed the ball only a few inches, let it sit. Eventually, curiosity got louder than fear. He sniffed it, tapped it with his paw, then gave it a half-hearted shove. The first time his tail twitched upward, just a little, it felt like the whole place got lighter. The bag stayed in his favorite corner, untouched by anyone but him. Sometimes, for a minute or two, I'd swap it with the blanket and watch his reaction. He'd tense, pace once, twice, then settle with his head on the blanket, eyes still flicking to where the bag had been. No full-blown panic now, just worry. That was progress. One dry, windy afternoon, the kind Arizona does too well, someone didn't latch the outer gate all the way. I was inside, watching him paw at the tired grass, actually play bowing at a toy like a brave pup finally remembering he was young. A gust pushed through the run, hard and sudden. It caught the edge of that old white bag, now thin and almost translucent from age and teeth. Before I could move, the wind lifted it, slid it right under the gap in the gate, and carried it out of sight. He didn't see it go. Not yet. He was busy feeling real earth under his paws for the first time in God knows how long. It wasn't until he trotted back toward his corner, tongue out, eyes brighter than I'd ever seen them, that it happened. He reached his spot, stopped, stared at the bare concrete where his whole world used to sit, and in that instant, everything in him went still. It only took him a heartbeat to understand. His head snapped left, then right, eyes wide, breathing chopping into short, sharp pulls. He checked every inch of that corner, nose slamming into bare concrete, claws scraping like he could dig the bag back out of the floor. Then the sound started. A low whine at first, then rising fast into frantic barks that bounced off the walls. He tore around the run, crashing into the sides, pawing at the gate and the fence. One desperate stray puppy trying to tear open space itself to find what he'd lost. I dropped down onto the ground, legs crossed, palms open. "Marlow," I called, finally using the name like it belonged to him now. "Marlow, hey, I'm right here." He didn't care. Didn't even flick an ear my way. His whole world had narrowed down to one missing white shape, and until he found it, I was just background noise. A tech out in the yard shouted that she saw something. A minute later, she came back around with the bag, pinched between two fingers. It was dirtier, more torn, sagging in on itself, but to him, it might as well have been gold. The second she stepped inside the run, he launched. Not at her. At it. He crashed into the bag, wrapped his front legs around it, and shoved his whole face into the plastic, sucking in air like he'd been drowning. His body shook so hard his nails tapped on the floor. He wasn't guarding it now. He was begging it not to leave him again. Watching that, something finally clicked all the way into place for me. This wasn't trash. This was the last smell of before. Before the road, before the heat, before the shoulder and the phones, the pet carrier he never got. A car, a house, a voice, somebody. Whatever sat sealed inside that bag stayed a mystery. And honestly, none of us had the heart to open it and prove anything different. So I made myself a promise. No ripping off bandages, no he'll get over it speeches. We'd do this the slow way. The bag could stay as long as it needed to, but it wasn't going to be the only thing he leaned on. There'd be the blanket, my smell, new sounds, new ground. Outside, the Arizona sky was starting to darken in that fast, heavy way it does before a desert storm. Through the high windows, you could see the clouds stacking on themselves, hear the first low grumble of thunder rolling in from somewhere past Scottsdale. The lights in the hallway flickered once, then steadied. Another rumble came, closer this time. Marlow flinched and crushed that filthy white plastic bag tighter to his chest, as if whatever was coming, he planned to face it, with the only piece of his past he still had left. The storm hit faster than the forecast ever promised. Wind slammed into the side of the building, driving sand and rain sideways. Thunder cracked right over us, so loud it rattled the metal runs. Doors along the hallway banged in their frames, one after another. Somewhere in the chaos, the latch on the side yard gate didn't catch. Another boom shook the place, and that was all it took. Marlow launched for his corner, grabbed the filthy white bag, and bolted. I saw the flash of his tail as he slipped through the narrow gap, a terrified German Shepherd puppy vanishing into sheets of rain and the noise of the road. Then everything went loud. Flashlights came out. Voices shouted over the storm, "Backlot! Check the fence line!" For a second, all I could feel was that same old hole opening in my chest, the one that whispers, "You're going to be too late again." We tore through puddles in the yard, mud sucking at our boots. Every dark shape looked like a dog for half a second until it didn't. The rain washed away tracks as fast as he could leave them. And then, under all that, I heard it. Not a bark, a broken, stuttering sound, thin as a breath. I followed it to the far corner where a big metal storage container sat against the fence. He was wedged underneath, soaked through, shaking so hard his paws slipped in the mud, that white bag crushed to his chest like a life jacket. I dropped to my knees in the cold water, but I didn't reach for the bag. I just held my hands out, palms up, and talked. "You can stay under there with that old hurt forever," I said, voice barely carrying over the rain. "Or you can come out here with me. I can't promise much, kid, but I can promise you won't be alone." Marlow's eyes flicked from the bag to my hands, jaw locked tight. And then, just for a heartbeat, I felt his grip on the plastic loosen. For a long second, nothing moved but the rain. Then he shifted. One paw slid forward through the mud. His body followed in a shiver, inch by inch, until he was close enough for me to feel his breath on my hands. He still had the filthy white bag locked between his teeth. He held on until the very last moment, and then, with a tiny, exhausted sigh, he let it fall. I scooped him up before either of us could think too hard about it. He was all bone and soaked fur and shaking heart, a brave pup, finally choosing skin and warmth over plastic and ghosts. I wrapped him in my old blanket, pulled him in against my chest, and for the first time in a long time, that crack in my own chest didn't feel so empty. Behind us, under the metal container, the bag stayed where it landed. Rain beat it into the mud, turning it gray and heavy, but we never opened it. Whatever lived in there stayed a symbol, not a story we needed to pick apart to move on. Back at the shelter, his run looked different. The center of it wasn't a corner anymore. It was the blanket, a couple of chewed toys, the spot where he'd curl up and actually sleep. Sometimes he'd still glance toward the door like he expected the bag to appear again, but the wild panic was gone. Days turned into a rhythm of short walks, careful play, getting him used to leashes and loud sounds and the idea that people could pass by without hurting him. Then the flyers went up. Adoption Day. Open house. A line of kennels full of rescued puppies waiting to be noticed. I dreaded it and needed it in the same breath. Marlow couldn't live here forever, and the idea of him leaving felt like handing over a piece of my own rib. Families drifted past his kennel, glancing at his size, his scars, doing quiet math about couches and yards and Instagram feeds. Most kept walking, but one boy stopped. He stepped closer to the bars, looked straight into Marlow's eyes, and stayed there like he recognized something. "I feel him," the kid whispered to his parents. They looked at each other over his head, and I stood there, heart caught between hope and the old, familiar fear of hearing, "We'll think about it," one more time. A few weeks later, I found myself driving through a quiet neighborhood in Scottsdale. That nervous little adoption folder riding shotgun, and a small bag of treats and a brand new ball on the seat beside it. The house was one of those low, sun-warmed places with a tidy yard and a basketball hoop over the garage. Before I could knock twice, the door burst open. Marlow hit the hallway like a storm, only this time the good kind. He'd filled out, legs solid, chest broadening, coat shining in a way that made it hard to remember the shaking stray puppy on the shoulder. His tail windmilled so hard his whole back end got in on it. He skidded to a stop just long enough to press his nose into my hand, like a quick, "You made it," then darted back to the kid behind him. Inside, the living room was simple. A neat dog bed tucked by the couch, a bright blue blanket folded on top of it, soft and clean. No torn white plastic, no sour smell of old milk and fear. The boy threw the ball down the hall. Marlow rocketed after it, claws clicking on the floor, then came racing back to drop it into small, waiting hands. Every now and then he circled around to me, pushing his head into my palm, holding there for a beat like he was reminding both of us who he used to be. In the small talk that followed, his mom mentioned the rough year their son had had, the way he'd gone quiet, stopped wanting to go outside much. Since they brought this loyal puppy home, she said there were muddy shoes by the door again, and laughter in the backyard. When it was time to go, I scratched Marlow one last time between the ears and walked back to my truck with that old split feeling in my chest, part empty, part more full than it had been in a long time. Later that night, the family sent a photo. Marlow, curled up tight on that blue blanket, breathing slow and even, no tremor in his paws, no plastic bag in sight. And I couldn't help wondering how many dogs just like him were still out there on the shoulder, waiting for someone to decide they were worth pulling over for. His story still sits with me. A little rescued puppy on the side of the road, clinging to a filthy white bag like it was the last safe place he had left, and somehow finding the courage to let it go. We all carry our own versions of that bag, old fears, old hurts, moments we don't want to open because we're scared of what's inside. Marlow taught me something I should have learned a long time ago. You don't have to unpack every wound to move forward. Sometimes it's enough to sit beside the fear, breathe through it, and choose the warm hand reaching toward you. Compassion isn't grand gestures. It's pulling over when others drive past. It's making a call. It's opening your home or your heart for just long enough to give a dog like him a chance. Nonprofit rescue groups do this every single day. They meet dogs still holding tight to their own closed bags, boxes, blankets, the last pieces of a life that hurt them. And with time, patience, and people who refuse to look away, those dogs learn to trust again. If Marlow's journey moved you, share this video, leave a comment, pass the story forward. Every time you do, the algorithm finds new eyes, and we get one step closer to saving the next puppy waiting on the shoulder for someone to stop. Join our brave Paws family. Be their voice. Be their hope.